together again and the invitation to be back. Before our official call to worship words, I want to share with you that song that you heard is a song I wrote about my father's last words, and the idea that we don't really know how much time we have and to savor what we have. His last words to his sister before he died unexpectedly about 18 years ago when I was a young adult were, "Sister, it's later than we think," encouraging her to come home to Texas to be near family. And she was grateful that she took that advice because she got many years living close to their other sister, who I was just telling folks passed away due to COVID about 6 weeks ago. So it all kind of comes back around for me. And so I share that. It's later than we think. So love yourself. He used to tell all of his daughters to love ourselves. And so I invite you all here in that spirit of love, of not knowing how much time we have, but that we want to savor the time that we have. And also along those lines, our call to worship words this morning come from the Indian author Arundhati Roy. She's an activist, and she has written about the idea of pandemics as a portal. This is a short excerpt. She writes, "Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our databanks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it." Little luggage. I love that. Welcome to worship. Let us imagine the world that we are willing to fight for together.
Thank you. Let's have our lighting of the chalice. I'm going to share my screen so that we can have the words visible. If you can see that, lighting of the chalice, and you can stay on mute, but say along with me. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, to serve you, Spirit of freedom, in the fullness of community. And now is the time we set aside each week for the sharing of joys and concerns. If you have a joy or concern you'd like to share, go ahead and speak up, and Kathy will light a candle, and you can share your joy or concern.
I have a concern.
Okay.
On Tuesday, Steve is going to be undergoing a pretty delicate operation to break up a kidney stone. On Tuesday about noon, he'll be going through that. And of course, it's always a concern when you have something, happening like that seriously in your body. And so we are concerned a bit about it, but we know that medical care in Minnesota is wonderful. So everything should work out pretty good, we're hoping. So think of him on Tuesday. Thanks.
Yes. Good luck, Steve.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
I have a joy. I have a joy. Today is the 103rd birthday of George, who was my mom's partner for the last 10 or 15 years of her life. So I wish him a happy birthday.
Kelly?
I have a few, happily and sadly. So I'll start with the good stuff. Emily, our church baby, will be 31 on Saturday, May 1st, which is hard to believe in many ways. So that is a dear joy. She is actually preaching this morning at her church in Illinois. So that's also a joy. And the sad things are that, I have one more joy. I got my first vaccine on Friday, so that worked out well. A dear friend of the family has cirrhosis of the liver and has been on the transplant list at Mayo Clinic for many years. But she did some of her annual tests recently and discovered that her blood supply would not be adequate for a transplant. And so she has been taken off the list, and she has to have dialysis every month or a week, or I'm not sure how often, to keep her alive. And she probably will only do that for another couple of years, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just a tough thing. She has NASH, which is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, the liver disease that she has, which is what my mom had as well. So that's sad. And then on Tuesday, my father, who has that tumor on his liver, is going to have some more tests done. So also please keep him in your thoughts. And then this is a minor thing in relation to all of that, but my glasses were stolen out of my car in my garage sometime this week. They're prescription glasses, and I can't drive without them. And I don't have backup. So I need to go to the eye doctor tomorrow and get new glasses as soon as possible.
And that was a very weird thing, because very little else was disturbed or taken, and it was just like they rifled through and grabbed what they thought might be valuable, and probably it was teenagers, I'm guessing, but who
Yeah.
knows?
My masks that I had in the car and my prescription glasses were stolen, and that was all. And they left money. There was money sitting in the console, and they didn't take that. It was just quarters, but still.
So what are you gonna do? All right. Are there others?
I have a quick one.
Okay.
A joy that after having COVID, Jim tested negative on Friday.
Whew.
And as I told the neighbor without yelling across the lawn, I was so excited to get to sleep with my husband again.
Yeah, it must be strange to be quarantined in the same house.
So I have a joy. First
Okay.
of all, I want to apologize to everyone. I don't know why my video won't go on, but it won't. So I'm not trying to be rude. But my joy is that I passed my test for my lead Green Associate credential, so I can have that little added bit to my resume, and hopefully that'll open some more doors for me. So that was a real joy.
Great. Awesome. Holly.
I apologize for getting up, but the first wood duck just floated by as Kelly was talking. I was listening to you, Kelly, but I grabbed my camera and got one shot before they flew off because they're so shy. But you've heard about my cardinal red and his mate Pinkalicious. And did I tell you last week that she built a nest on the vine outside my window? I didn't think I did. Yeah, who knows whether it'll make it, but it's pretty exciting. They've been there in the winter, but and then they go off somewhere and build a nest. This is the first year she's built a nest right there. So let's pray it survives.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Kathy will light a final candle for all the joys and concerns that remain unspoken, but in our hearts. May we know that whatever befalls us in life, we're held in the loving embrace of this community. And I didn't mention this before, but if you don't remember, Reverend Erin Walter is from Austin, Texas, and is a minister, activist, and musician. And she won the Sermon Award from the UU Women's Federation, and the former YMCA director and a singer-songwriter for the band Parker Woodland, whose music you'll hear or have heard already. And she's a board member for the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry and the affiliated community minister of Wildflower UU Church in Austin. So welcome. I'll let you take it away, Reverend Erin.
Thanks again, Chuck. And it's great to be with you. And I hope that you've been well. I know it's been a hard time, in particular in your state. And so having just had the privilege of witnessing your joys and sorrows and concerns, I'd like to invite you into a spirit of prayer, meditation, just to take some moments with what you've shared and what we hold as a nation and as a world. Spirit of life and love, holy of many names, that knows no man-made borders, speaks in all languages, and really, truly is love. Thank you for this community. Thank you for the ways in which they have continued to come together, continued to fight for each other and for their communities, for the safety and the care of our world. Be with them during these times of surgery, of healing, of coming to accept things that we might had hoped would be different. Let us celebrate and amplify the joys in their lives. Let that joy be contagious. And let us comfort each other, knowing that we are never alone. Ever, ever. That we have each other, and we as Unitarian Universalists know that we are connected to the all. In this time of spring, of birds with wonderful names, and the sounds of nature, let us feel nurtured. Amen, and blessed be. So, again, a joy to be back with you. The anthem that you're going to hear today is the song that my band would often start our rock shows with when we were able to play in person. But I've discovered in the downtime that it also feels like a meditation to me when played in an acoustic way. It's often quite loud and rockin' in person, believe it or not. But what you're going to hear for this song, everybody else, is a meditation version. I asked my friends and my community, and especially Austin artists, other ministers, to send me a picture of themselves. This was around the new year, of themselves lying down. I asked people just to lie down anywhere and give me a picture of them at rest. I did this because I don't know about you, but I've been tired. Just surviving a pandemic, just living in a country with such gun violence, with white supremacy systems that we are called to dismantle. I'm tired. Parenting children who are home, still distance learning, or even if your kids are back at school, navigating, going to school in a pandemic, it's tiring. And I think that our culture, and this is something that comes, is considered a component of white supremacy culture. When you do anti-racism work and training, you study some of the tenets of what comes with that culture. And some of those things are like perfectionism, urgency, never being able to slow down. And so I just asked people, would you slow down with me and send me some evidence that we know how to rest? And there's another piece to that. It's the disability justice piece. And we're going to talk more about this in the sermon. But I want this to be in your mind as you watch all of these people at rest and you listen to the music meditation. Mia Mingus, who's a disability justice activist, says this: we actively need to challenge how ableism and capitalism manifest in our lives. She says, because burnout is largely rooted in ableism, in deprioritizing access and rest and capacity, challenging things that lead to burnout is a form of disability justice. Taking time for yourself and to rest is a form of disability justice and of dismantling supremacy culture. So I want to invite you into this musical anthem, which is really a musical meditation on our right to take care of ourselves and our right to rest. And I thank Chuck for playing the videos this morning. You have all the time in the world for everybody else, and it kills you to save some of it for yourself. The loving heart for those who aren't around. What if you gave it to those who hold their ground? There comes a time when even you'll have to decide. Are you ready to stop living someone else's life? There's a difference between giving up and settling down. And maybe it's not your job to know right now. Would you take it if it were the easy way out? Would you know if the words were it's not easy this time we're living in, and it's not easy to take time for yourself for many of us. And so today, as we're going to talk about community care, we're going to talk about mental health, and I really want us to invite ourselves into a spirit of rest within ourselves during this time, of prioritizing and listening to our bodies, of what we need. Are you comfortable where you are in this moment? Could you make yourself even more comfortable in your space? Don't worry if you move around or you get up. Take care of yourself in this time. And I get emotional looking at those faces in the videos. Every one of those people is special to me, and I haven't seen them in person, most of them, in over a year. The title of the sermon today is Baby, We Need a Barn Raising. And I think many of you are familiar with the concept of barn raising. It's the work of a community building something together, which is a lot of what we're doing here as Unitarian Universalists week in and week out. And I can only imagine how exhausting it would be to try and put up a barn by yourself. And so one of the ways that we honor the need for self-care, for rest, for community care is by doing things together, by asking for help, by not expecting one person to build a barn alone. But I want to tell you a story about kind of a modern day barn raising. As you know, the traditional practice has fallen away, other than in Amish and Mennonite communities typically. But there are ways that we can be barn raisers for each other, and I want to talk about that today. This comes from Twitter, a place I don't go that often, but I go sometimes, and there can be some actual really, really beautiful storytelling there. A woman named Sheila O'Malley, whose Twitter handle is Sheila Kathleen with a K, tells this story. She says that the year after her dad died was so hard that she didn't and doesn't really remember about 90% of it. She says she moved into a new apartment and was unable to unpack for months. I was ashamed, Sheila says, that I couldn't unpack. How can you be unable to unpack? She writes, my good friend David, whom I've known since high school, knew I was struggling, and he felt helpless. He said, you are loved, we need you. And I was like, doesn't matter, but thanks. So David took a risk. Now, I think we've probably all felt this way about a friend where you feel powerless of what to say, what to do to support them during the hardest time. And I've also been on that side where I felt I couldn't do what I was supposed to do and didn't know how to ask for the help I needed. Well, Sheila says, David didn't know, he took a risk. It very well could have ended badly, what he's about to do, and you'll find out. She could have lashed out. But here's what David did. He sent an email to a group of local friends without Sheila's knowledge and said this: Sheila is struggling. She needs our help. Let's all go over there and unpack her apartment for her. Bring food. Let's make it fun. Now, I love that part of what David did, which was not just that we're going to go over there and do the grinding work of unpacking boxes. He said, bring food, let's make it fun. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Sheila says, at the end of the night, she looked at her friend's husband, and she describes him as a quiet, taciturn guy who drives a tugboat on the Hudson. I love that. A practical man of few words. After they had cleaned her whole apartment, they'd eaten, they'd had fun. She looked at him speechless, not knowing how to say thank you to this resilient, self-sufficient guy. And Sheila says, he looked at me, saw that look on my face, and said, listen, baby, what we did today was a barn raising. And the phrase says it all, right? But what they did was they took the shame that she was feeling out of the equation. They showed up, they made it fun. She says, now not only do I have an apartment I can live in, that's part of it, but here's what community does. Here's what love and friends and care does. Not only did they set up her apartment, but now Sheila says she has a memory of friends, of laughter, of dirty jokes. That's why I laughed when I got to that part. Of hard work, and a reminder of what kind of friends she has. Baby, we need a barn raising. I love that. I love that so much. And that story is interesting and challenging for us now, I feel like, because we haven't been able to invite people into our homes in the ways that we might normally do before. And we haven't been able to barge into our friends' homes uninvited like David did. We've had to think about how we support each other in this time safely. And I'd love to know in the chat or in coffee hour after, I'd love to know what creative ways you all have found to take care of each other or to seek support during this time. Certain things have had more access, right? I know therapy, AA groups, activism, all of these things have now been done over Zoom, and you can open up a new way of participating. But I want to invite us to think about how we do our barn raisings in COVID times. And that's so much of what a church is, right? Is that we take care of each other. We keep our eyes peeled for who needs that support. One of the reasons why I think it's really important that faith communities, and especially Unitarian Universalists, think about how we can support each other through depression, through anxiety, through suicidal ideation, which are all so prevalent, is because that's faith work for us to do, because other religions have told people that suicide is a sin, or that to be depressed shows you don't have faith in God. And that's really damaging theology. It means that people, if they are feeling suicidal, might not ask for help, might not tell anyone. And so it's really important that we be as loud a voice or louder that says, if you are depressed, if you are struggling, you are loved. You are human. You are one of us. I am one of you. It's important that we share. And so another thing that religion does is name things. It's a sacred act. One of the first things that happens in the Bible as a sacred text is naming the light, naming the animals, naming humanity. And so what I want to do as we're talking about mental health and community care is name some things that are present in my life, in my family, for the sake of, I hope, connection and demystifying, to say that if any of these things are present in your life and you haven't talked about them in church yet, I hope that you will. Let your church be there for you in all the ways, like we say, joys and concerns. So for me, I will name for you. And as I name these things, I pray. These are like a spoken prayer that we are there for each other around these things. In my family, we experience depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, alcoholism, eating disorders, suicide, and personality disorders. These are all conditions known to me through my extended family, people I love, people I laugh with, people I wouldn't trade for the world. We know joy, we know peace, and we know those struggles. And so if you experience any of those, I just want you to know that you are not alone, and that this is a faith tradition that affirms the full humanity of all. Someone asked for that quote about disability justice, saying that the things that lead to burnout is a form of disability justice, and I'll share that with you again later so you have it in print. But I heard recently A lot of people say that they're burnt out or exhausted during this pandemic, and what they mean is they're depressed. It's a very hard time. And I want to share with you some stories of a couple of people who did amazing things, who are great role models, and who struggled with those things too. First one of my favorites, Mr. Rogers. Now, Mr. Rogers was a community minister like myself. His TV show was his community ministry. He was ordained. And he had a character on his show called Daniel Tiger. You all remember, anyone remember Daniel Tiger? He was basically, if you watch the Mr. Rogers movie documentary, Daniel Tiger was basically the avatar for Fred Rogers. He was the closest character to Fred Rogers. And they told us that in the movie, Won't You Be My Neighbor? And so Daniel Tiger is singing with Lady Aberlin, his friend, in one segment of the Mr. Rogers show. And he sings, "Often I wonder if I'm a mistake. I'm not supposed to be scared, am I? Sometimes I cry and sometimes I shake, wondering, isn't it true that the strong never break? I'm not like anyone else I know. I'm not like anyone else." And what breaks my heart about that, and the reason why I told you all the things that my family knows intimately in terms of mental health struggles, is that he feels like he's a mistake because he thinks no one else experiences those feelings of not being enough, of not being strong. And that's just a travesty, because I think we all know those feelings sometimes. Here's the beauty of what Lady Aberlin does in response. She doesn't say to Daniel Tiger, "You're crazy," or "That's not, you're perfect just the way you are." She doesn't throw platitudes or cliches at him. She sings with him, and they weave a duet together at the same time, where Daniel Tiger continues to confess his struggles, and Lady Aberlin sings this: "I think you're just fine as you are. I really must tell you, I do like the person that you're becoming. You are my friend. Quiet or shaking, or dreaming or breaking, there's no mistaking it. You're my best friend." She doesn't try to fix it. She doesn't pretend, and he doesn't pretend that what she says makes him all better. What they do is they accompany each other. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. The other person whose story sticks with me around this is Abraham Lincoln, someone known as making great change in our country, not a perfect person, but who made great change for our country with the Emancipation Proclamation and more. In the book Lincoln's Melancholy, we find out that Lincoln suffered greatly from depression. And there were nights when his friends stayed and slept in his home with him to make sure that he made it through to the morning. Just that image of friends sleeping, staying the night to help this person that many people think of as a great man make it through the night. It just moves me so deeply. And that is what I hope for our communities, that we see each person here for what they bring and their gifts, but also the truth of what they might be struggling with, and that we may be present for each other, that we may accompany each other through the hard journeys that we're in right now. And we have to do it with rest. I love that in the story, the friends are sleeping near Lincoln. They're not doing a lot. They're just there and they're resting with Lincoln. Daniel Tiger and Lady Aberlin are just singing this sweet little song together. She's not trying to make him do anything. The fatigue, the spiritual fatigue of living in a pandemic for over a year. Sometimes the best things we can do for each other is just to let each other be, accompany each other while we rest. And let me tell you something. I look at you all, I look at the 16 participants in this group. Running a faith community is a lot of work. And you all have been holding this together for over a year in this new and different way. So I also hope you're appreciating each other. I hope you think about what you might do to celebrate each other. A big part of the barn raising is the celebration. They make food, they have a banquet, there's music, the children are dancing while people are hammering. And the same thing with Sheila O'Malley's story. They had music, they had jokes. I love that we had a couple of laughs during the Joys and Concerns time. But it's not just the hard work of building a barn. It's not just the hard work of unpacking this person's apartment when they're depressed. It's gotta be the joy. It's gotta be the celebration. It's so, so, so important. And I'll confess to you, the congregation I'm affiliated with is currently on the hunt for 5 new board members because our board members are tired or shuffling off. And it's because they've been doing such hard work. And so I'm constantly reminding them, it's okay if you don't get to everything in this board meeting. Don't take on everything. Don't burn out. If we don't have meetings that a person with an illness can attend, that a person with a disability can sit through and attend, that a mom or a dad or a parent who's tired from being up nights with a baby can make it through, then we don't have accessible models for leadership. We need our church leadership options to be accessible and not burn people out. That is disability justice. That is community care. It's been hard to find ways to care for each other, and I also celebrate the creative ways you've been doing it. I want to offer you one resource that has been really wonderful for me. It's the work of Monica Coleman. She is a Christian theologian, a Black woman who spoke to my seminary and whose book, Not Alone, is meditations on depression from a spiritual lens. And she really does this beautiful thing, which is that she creates these short questions and excerpts that you can meditate on, pray on, work with, because when you're struggling, when you're tired, when you're depressed, nobody has the ability to read some huge long thing, just a little nugget of nourishment. And so she asks questions in this book in these very short chapters, questions like, who in your life can handle your truth? What songs express how you feel? And the book is just lovely. Again, it's called Not Alone by Monica Coleman. And one of the things that she says in it is that we need to be paying attention. We need to be noticing who needs a barn raising, who needs support, because not always is it easy to ask, right? So who has dropped away from the church this year? Who has been quiet? Who used to be exuberant? Who's missing? And can we reach out to them? Can we offer a socially distant visit, a phone call? There's a ministry in just calling or texting and checking in with people. But that's a big part of what she encourages us to do, is to notice. And that's what David did for Sheila Kathleen. He noticed, he took some initiative. I bet you've been doing that, but I just want to encourage you as we go into this second year of pandemic life. There's so much hope with the vaccines, but it's also still very tiring, still very hard. So I encourage you to look out for each other, reach out to each other, and find even little ways to do barn raisings for each other and make it fun. Bring the music, bring the food, bring the laughter. In the spirit of self-care and rest, this last closing hymn, Dona Nobis Pacem, is one that's dear to my heart. My family sings it at reunions, which is something I've missed this year. And I hope that you take it in a spirit of peace. And take a breath with me. In the spirit of gratitude for this community and for all of you, I invite you to put your hands out, always by invitation and consent. So if that's not your thing, you don't have to do it. But I love that feeling of reaching out to the universe, the sense of the seventh principle in Unitarian Universalism, that we are all connected. And if you are in the room with someone and you're able to hold a hand, what an incredible gift. Let us share in the joy of those who are close enough to hold hands. If you're like me and you're alone in the shed or alone somewhere else, let's imagine together whose hand we might hold when we can be together again. In the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and love, holy of many names, all languages and no man-made borders. Thank you for this day. Thank you for the waters of the ocean. Thank you for the spirit of community, of knowing that we can build and we can care and we can laugh in so many beautiful ways when we are together. Also comfort us in the ways that we are alone and isolated, in the ways that we wish we could be together, but not quite yet. Thank you for vaccines. Thank you for justice, knowing that we have so much more to do on those fronts. Thank you for the work of these people. May they be barn raisers for each other, and may they balance rest, knowing that they are worthy and that they honor and we honor ourselves when we take care. Amen. And blessed be.